for joining us again on i24 News. Let's begin with your meeting this week at Israel's Foreign Ministry. There are some conflicting, perhaps, narratives about that. Were you called in? Was it prearranged? Was there who reprimanded who in that meeting? We're hearing different versions of it.
All right. If we was calling for the meeting about 2 weeks ago for two reasons. Basically, the voting at the UN, which we knew that was the big issue for the Israelis, and we're supposed to coordinate better the position of both ministries and our ambassadors to the UN. And secondly, it's still the big issue of the denies for the Ukrainian citizens to enter Israel, which we are recently experiencing. So over the last 3 months, the number of the denies grows 3 to 4 times.
Meaning Ukrainians to come to Israel,
yes,
and Israel is not allowing them, taking them
yes,
in as other countries have been.
Yes, exactly. So this is why we asked for the meeting 2 weeks ago. And then I received the notice that finally they agreed to meet last Monday, and we basically actually met day before yesterday. I saw among the other guests my colleagues, the ambassadors of the European countries, so I think it was a round of negotiation about the same voting at the UN and the other issues. But
do you feel that Ukraine was singled out by Israel from criticism on a vote, even though other countries with friendly relations with Israel also voted for that?
Listen, I was told, I asked this question, and I was told that they are speaking frankly just with their friends.
Okay.
So they call us friends, but it was only the leak about Ukraine, unfortunately, which doesn't feel me comfortable. But I think it was a friendly and open discussion, and we still have a room for negotiation and fulfillment of both parties' positions.
Right. There are reports or analysts who say that leak about Ukraine, singling out Ukraine, was in a sense to cover Israel's, the criticism of Israel not providing Ukraine with defensive arms or defensive weapons still. But I want to ask you about that, because there are reports. First of all, President Zelensky did speak with Prime Minister Netanyahu, who reportedly said he was still open to the possibility. What can you tell us about that?
It was the frank and open discussion last week of President Zelensky with I assume
I'm sorry,
winner,
Prime Minister-designate.
Winner, yeah.
Yes.
Designated Prime Minister Netanyahu. It was the open discussion and friendly, because they know each other for quite a long time. You remember that
Sure.
Prime Minister Netanyahu visited Kyiv, Zelensky was here. So, but Zelensky was very focused on his discussion, because I briefed my president right before the phone call, and he was asking for the military technical cooperation, meaning defensive, of course.
Right.
And he also says that we are not expecting anybody to be intermediaries now, because the time for mediation is gone. So in exchange from the presidential office report, I knew that it was the open discussion, and Netanyahu was talking positively about the future cooperation, and says that he will see whether he can reconsider quickly the issue of the defensive, which is the most important for us, of course. So it was a good talk, and I do hope that if they will form the new coalition, basically we'll be having the better news for both countries.
I want to clarify that at the time for mediation is over. You mean between Israel and Ukraine over weapons, or Israel or Benjamin Netanyahu acting as a mediator between Ukraine and Russia?
Yes, I want to remind you that we asked Netanyahu, when he was the prime minister last time, to be the mediator, and he was, I think, doing the best effort. He talked to Mr. Putin twice before this active phase of the war. But we considering we have the war with Russia since 2014. So, and at that time he told us, which was early last spring, that he was trying hard, but he understands at that time that he can be successful mediator only if two parties want to agree. And over the table he saw just one party that wanted to agree, which was Ukraine. So, but now we do focus on the liberation of our territories, And we do believe this is possible. The majority of population, no matter of those shellings and barbarian bombings of the Ukrainian territories by Russians, still believe.
Just to be clear, do you know if Benjamin Netanyahu raised the issue again in that phone call of being a mediator, and President Zelensky said we're not interested, or President Zelensky made a point that that's not what you can do for us now. We do not want you or need you to act as a mediator.
This is what President Zelensky says. Yes.
Okay.
And of course, you know, in certain points, the mediation is still important. Like, for example, humanitarian issues is always important. Exchange of the prisoners of war, as an example of that.
Right.
That was the Turkish Prime Minister.
But acting as a mediator with Vladimir Putin, that's off the table for now. So let's go back to the question of the arms. There was a report today in one of the local papers here that Israel has given NATO members permission to deliver to Ukraine weapon systems that include some Israeli technology, especially electro-optic technology. Are you familiar with that report? Do you have any comment on it?
Yes, I am familiar with that report. Nevertheless, I cannot either prove or deny it. So this is between our MODs, and I'm sure you are following the close contacts of both ministers of defense. Just the last phone call between the ministers of defense of Ukraine with Israel was 2 days ago. And yeah, I do hope that this is accurate information, but unfortunately I couldn't confirm it, or I couldn't comment on it.
All right, so you're not going to comment on that. And let me just ask you, it's become increasingly clear the Russian strategy is to basically knock out your country's infrastructure and make it a very cold and dark winter. And I would assume that gives some urgency to your request for Israel for the kind of air defense systems that could prevent that strategy.
Exactly, and we do receive those air defense systems from our European partners and the other NATO countries. But when I've been asked by the local politicians, isn't that enough? Israel is too small to provide you enough weapons. We are saying, listen, even those small shipments make a big difference. Because if you are talking about Iranian drones, which are currently on the table, you can shoot them with a simple anti-aviation artillery, which is the samples has been made on the 80s and 90s of the last century, so it's nothing new. And even the small changes this will make difference, because the country is huge, and you have to keep under control all infrastructure. Basically, the critical one is the electrical power stations and the civilians' life, and that's what we are focused on. So if the Israeli Minister of Defense telling us that we don't have enough for ourselves, at the same time I see the reports on the news that they signed with Germany the contract for more than $3 billion, no matter how long time should it take, the threat will not go away from us, unfortunately, because Russia is still going to be our neighbor. And I don't believe that this conflict in general will be over soon. So we are interested on the long-term strategic contracts, and we need to enhance our cooperation in Israel anyway.
All right. Well, we'll have to see if the incoming Israeli government is perhaps more open to that change.
Very much hope so.
In policy, Ukraine's Ambassador Israel Yevgen Korniychuk, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you, sir.
On i24 News.